Whenever you're ready.
So, before I get started, tell me a little bit about your school and a little bit about your program and the kind of classes that you're running right now.
Yeah, so I'll let Eileen kind of talk about that.
So we run an academy of finance here. So the students apply freshman year and they start sophomore year with a principles of finance course and a college success skills course. And then junior year, they do a computer applications course where they get the MOS certification, and they do a marketing management / event planning course where they run our car show. And then senior year, they take entrepreneurship and financial planning.
Okay, great. Do you have any actual personal finance or economics classes kind of mixed in there too?
Sophomore year and senior year. Senior year is financial planning, and sophomore year is CFM.
Great. So we have quite a lot of stuff that applies to basically everything you just covered, and I will go through it in some detail. So this is our resource. It's called personalfinancelab.com. There's 4 major components of it. The first one is our stock market game. It's an extremely flexible and customizable stock market game. There's a lot of stuff you can play around with, and generally speaking, we use it as kind of a foundational activity that kind of pulls everything together. The second part is the lab space itself. So we work with a lot of schools that actually build financial literacy business labs, personal finance labs, and everything in between. The labs consist of generally a ticker, an LCD screen, posters, and basically combinations of those components. I mean, no 2 labs are the same. So let me try to pull up one of the recent labs here just to give you an idea what it looks like.
Oh, that looks sweet.
So you've got tickers, LCD screens. In this case, they use it in a computer lab. Sometimes they add, 1 or 2 of these elements to a regular classroom. Sometimes it'll be inside or outside of the classroom. And you can see here, there's these widgets that are on these screens, and we control these. For example, on the right here, this is the class rankings for the stock game. Over here, they have market news that come up. We work with other schools that actually post in their lunchrooms. They'll have school announcements along with personal finance tips of the day, all kinds of stuff like that. So the third major component is our curriculum library. So we have over 300 activities in here that align to standards for personal finance, economics, accounting, management, marketing, investing, and finance. So I'll go through these in a little bit more detail in a minute, but basically there's a lot of stuff here, and each one of the lessons ends with an assessment. And the fourth component is our new personal budgeting game. So that one puts your students in the role of a college student with a part-time job. The teacher controls some of their fixed expenses, like how much rent and utilities they pay each month. But they go through each month. Random events happen throughout the month, basically relating to the topics the teachers are covering in class. And this will pop up buy versus save decisions, credit versus debit decisions, and the goal of the student is to go through 12 simulated months, increasing their net worth by moving money to their savings account, increasing their credit score by effectively using their credit cards, and managing their work-life-study balance by making sure that they allocate their time between going to classes on time, working their hours at work, and making sure that they have kind of a healthy personal life as well. So each of these pieces can be used basically mixed and matched as you want, so I'll show you kind of how that works, but I will jump in right to start with talking about the stock market game portion. So if you have any questions, just feel free to stop me and I'll be happy to answer them any time.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
That personal budget game, is that something you do in like a couple days, or is that something the students work on throughout the entire course?
The budget game basically works through 12 simulated months, and each month takes about 20 minutes to complete. So it can be done kind of marathon, where the students would go through and do several months in a row. But usually teachers will kind of spread it out over some period of time, whether they want to have a student do 1 month a week as kind of a dedicated class thing, or if they want to have them do a couple at a time as homework or something. It's kind of flexible.
Okay, thank you.
So let me log in with my teacher account and I'll show you how the setup works. So this is what's called my admin dashboard. I'll talk about this towards the end, but the first thing any teacher would do would we have to set up their class. So I'll go up to here, I'll go to create a challenge. So the creating the challenge is all those aspects mixed together, and you pick and choose which ones you want to use. You'll start out by giving your class a name. And a description, and this just appears on the registration page so your students know they're in the right place. We have a few other fields that are just kind of for analytics, like the estimated number of participants. We use that for marketing when we see how many students use our sites each year. You can put passwords on it, so if you're having kind of a private investment club that you don't want all of your students coming into, you can put a password to keep some out. A registration window, so this is when your students can come in and actually create their accounts. Trading dates, so this is when the portfolios are active in the stock game. So they will be able to make trades after this date, and then after the end date, we actually freeze their portfolios in time. So they don't need to sell everything off. It's just on the last day. If they come in after the end date, it's going to look exactly like it did at 4 p.m. on the last trading day. Time zones impact timestamps throughout the sites, so things like due dates and the timestamps the students see on their own reports. And we have forums where the students can post messages to each other. These can be turned on and off. Almost every class leaves them on, but we did have a couple cases where teachers said that they were having trouble moderating their students, especially in very large class sizes, and they asked for the option to have it be able to turn it off as well. Then we get into some of the rules you would have for the stock game. So there's a lot of different customization you can do. Currency, how much cash you want to give them, how much interest they earn on their cash, can they borrow money, and if so, at what interest rate, day trading, short selling, price floors, and we have some good stuff for the rankings too. So a public portfolio would let all the students see each other's trades and holdings. You can turn this on if you want to have more of a kind of a fun learning exercise, but turning it on kind of reduces the element of competition in the class, because we've seen that a lot of students will just start copying whatever the person in first place is doing. Turning it off increases that level of competition, and we personally feel that it kind of reinforces the learning a bit better, because the students are kind of forced to do their own research and their own homework. If the teacher wants to be in the rankings themselves, so typically speaking, the teachers who include themselves in the rankings and trade along the students see about a 30 to 40% increase in the class engagement, because it becomes kind of an element of competition trying to beat the teacher. Some teachers don't want to bother doing that, and that's perfectly fine, and they just want to leave themselves out of the rankings, so you have the option of doing that. In either case, the teacher can place trades and show how it works for the students. We also have Sharpe ratio and alpha beta rankings, so this would come into the higher level finance classes. So instead of it just being kind of a earn everything you can, it would be a risk adjusted Sharpe ratio returns would be a part of the rankings page. Same thing with the alpha and beta. This applies really more for the more advanced finance classes. Then you can do some more settings about how the students can trade. I'll turn on the advanced rules so you can see everything we have. Put a cap on how many trades students can place. So really in the finance classes, we have a lot of teachers who actually set up 2 portfolios for their students. One where they can do 300 or 1,000 trades, basically just trade as much as they want. But then they have a second buy and hold portfolio where they're capped at 10 or 20 trades. And so they're really forced to think those decisions through before everything goes in. And it's often a pretty good learning exercise when they see that their low trade portfolio outperforms their high trade one, because each decision kind of is a lot more weighty. Then we have the trade notes. So with trade notes, students need to write down why they're making each trade. So before the system will accept their trade to go through, they need to write why they're doing it. This can be connected to something a specific topic in class. They can be mentioning what's going on in the news that makes them think it's a good idea. But basically the idea here is to prevent them from kind of blindly going in and trading. You have a lot of settings for what the students can actually trade. So stocks and ETFs, options, mutual funds, bonds, futures, spots and forex, all that kind of stuff. For each security type, you can set the commission structure, and you can also put limits on how the students have to diversify. So, for example, a position limit says how much students can invest in any single equity. So, for example, if I put a 20% position limit, a student would need to buy at least 5 different stocks to use up all their starting cash. Whereas a diversification limit, that applies to the security type as a whole. So this would say, with a 50% limit, a student can put half their money into stocks and ETFs, the rest of their money they'd have to put somewhere else, like in mutual funds or bonds. So you can kind of force a little bit of variety both in terms of the individual securities and make sure they're exploring a couple different security types. There's customizations for margins, but typically speaking, we have 1 or 2 classes a year that use those, but nobody else. And then you can also choose which of the international exchanges you want your students to have access to. So there's over 30 countries available from around the world. We also have cryptocurrencies if that's something that you want to include in any of your classes. Some students get really into that. Some teachers really want to avoid it, so it's off or on. But yeah, there's exchanges from around the world. The only restriction is that the United States, we use real-time bid-ask prices. So students can't ever find a real-time feed and get any advantage, but most of the international exchanges will run on a 15-minute delay. So if you're doing a contest with prizes of some kind and you're including any of the international exchanges, we just recommend that you turn off day trading so they can't exploit any time loopholes. So
They'll find the tricks. They'll find them. Yeah.
in the all of these rules you can also change after your class has started. So sometimes a teacher will turn on just stocks to start with, and then they'll turn on mutual funds and bonds later, or vice versa. There's a lot of play you have available here. But that basically covers all of the rules for the stock game you'd have. If you go to the next step, then it asks whether or not you want to include the budgeting game in your class. So if you turn the budgeting game on, the first thing you'd set is the date range that the budget game will run. As of right now, that's the only setting you have, but by the end of August, there's going to be a bunch more settings you can choose for some of the fixed costs and some of the activities that will pop up in your class. I will talk about that in more detail when I actually show the budgeting game to show you where you can have control over. And the next part is the curriculum library. So with the curriculum, we organize it in what we call assignments. So each assignment has its own start and end date. So most teachers we work with will do it weekly. We have a couple that will do it daily, and we have a few of them that will just have one big assignment that covers the entire semester. So you choose your own start and end dates, and like I said, you have a lot of granularity here. You can choose the exact minute that it's due. Since this is a 1-week assignment, I will have it end next week at the end of the day. So I'll show you that the students are going to have a countdown showing how much time they have left to accomplish this. With the activities themselves, there's a few different types of activities we have. The first one is articles. So with articles we have, basically, each article is between 1,000 and 2,000 words. They usually take students about 10 minutes to complete each task. The articles, as often as possible, we include videos. We cover all of the glossary terms they need to know. We try to include some extra little mini games that talk about one thing or another. If it's talking about a security type, we'll show how the trading works in the system, and then each one ends with an assessment. So these are all pop quizzes. They're between 3 and 5 questions. They're all multiple choice, and students need to take this quiz to get credit for having read the article. As the teacher, we have this allow retries column. You can choose whether the student can take the quiz once and you're going to save that grade to a grade book, or if you allow retries, they'll be able to retry that quiz as many times as they want for a higher score. The second type of activity we have are videos. So these videos basically are tutorials showing students how to use the site. So there are some regular videos that are embedded into some of the articles, but these standalone ones are really tutorials showing them how to actually use the platform and make trades and things like that. The next type are what we call activities. The activities, instead of it being a quiz or an article with a quiz at the end, we give the students a tool, and they need to use that to solve certain scenarios that we propose with the quiz. So for example, this is an investment return calculator where they have time horizons, they have rates of return, they have inflation rates, they have tax rates, where they can see how all these different things are affected with each other using this slider. And so if they go down to the quiz that's associated with it, it gives them scenarios that they need to use the calculator to solve. The next type is what we call the Investing 101 course. So Investing 101, instead of it being one article or one video with one quiz, we organize things into chapters. So this one has more of a logical sequence. On average, there's 10 topics in a chapter. Each topic is fairly short. It's usually about 500 words instead of 1,000 or 2,000. They go through all 10 or 12 of the activities as part of the chapter, and at the end there's a final exam. And the students need to take that final exam for having credit to get credit for having gone through the chapter. The next stuff is career prep. So career prep, we have a few articles specifically talking about career prep, building a resume, certifications in the finance industry, looking for internships, things like that. But we also have our career center at the top of the page here. In the career center, there's a lot of information about certifications, the Series 7, the CPA, CFA, things like that. We have some prep courses available that students can use to prepare for those exams. But we also have our job and internship search tool. So these are real job and internships that are posted from around the country. It's a live data feed. Students can filter this down to their own location. We do have some students that apply for internships through here, but the typical use is part of the career development section of a class where the student needs to identify a dream job or a job they really want, identify what's required to get that job, and kind of work backwards to today to build up a career plan to get from A to B. The other types are making certain kinds of trades. So you can tell your students this week you need to make 15 trades in your virtual portfolio. You need to use at least one short sell. You need to buy a mutual fund. You can get into specific order types. You can talk about some of that international investing. You can even get into options and option trading activities. Farther down, we have what we call the mathematics. The mathematics is really more talking about computer science and using spreadsheets. So these show students how to use some of their portfolio data in spreadsheets to do certain things. So importing the data from various sources, calculating the daily returns, showing how to work with the spreadsheet to do the basic calculations of formulas. Graphing is a pretty in-depth one where it shows them how to use their portfolio to build different types of graphs to illustrate different aspects, daily returns or profit and loss or portfolio allocation, things like that. The budget game, I'll talk about what each of these mean, but you can also mandate your students do certain activities in the budgeting game itself. And the last one is an assessment. So an assessment would say, look at all the other stuff that I asked my students to do this week, all those other quizzes they've already taken, and grab a couple questions from each one of those quizzes to build a final assessment. So basically, instead of having an article right in front of them with a quiz with 3 questions, it's going to have just an exam sheet that has 30 or 40 questions covering everything else they've asked them to learn. So all the topics in here are divided by subject. So this first section here, Investing Fundamentals, this is stuff that we recommend every student who uses Personal Finance Lab look at, because these topics are basically necessary in order to understand the stock game and understand what's going on the site. It's really just basic tutorials of the platform, and these are used in almost every class as kind of the first assignment.
That's just a quick question. So with the assessment exams that they take throughout the curriculum, does the teacher have some sort of summative report seeing, information based on results of tests for students, or no?
Yeah, you have grade books and things like that where you can see that. You do not at this time have a report showing the actual who's gotten what question right, who's gotten what question wrong, but we do have answer keys available. We do plan on adding that within the next 12 months, hopefully by the spring, but if not, it'll be sometime mid-spring.
Okay. Thank you.
But you have the reports now showing what like every student has done, what they haven't done in terms of just completion of the tasks, and you do see what grades they've been getting on the quizzes, whether you allowed them to retry or not. If they are allowed to retry, you'll see the score that they got the last time they took it. If they're not allowed to retry, you'll see the grade they got the first time they took it.
Okay.
So the next section, intermediate investing tips. This is again a continuation. It's mutual funds, bonds, some of the more basic stuff that students would need to use when they're using the platform. But then we start breaking it down by actual subjects. So personal finance lessons. There's about 70 topics in here specific to personal finance, budgeting, reading some investing stuff. Consumer rights and responsibilities, insurance, credit, taxes, work versus study, bankruptcy, and a lot of stuff in between. So we fully align with the Jumpstart standards for personal finance. We also fully align with the National Council standards for personal finance, and every state standard that publishes them, we align with them as well. This column here for personal finance is listing explicitly the Jumpstart standards, but I have a separate resource where I can point you in the right direction of which topics align with which state standards as well. Next up is economics. Again, there's about 40 topics in here for economics. This column here is listing the National Council standards that we align to, but again, we align with all the state standards that we can find. So, supply and demand, price controls, unemployment, economic indicators, financial, fiscal policy, monetary policy, all that kind of stuff. Down here, our business curriculum. So we have about 30 topics for accounting, 15 for management, 10 for marketing. These we align with the NBA standards, but every state seems to be pretty different. So the whole point of Personal Finance Lab is you can mix and match any of these topics as much as you want. So you can grab stuff from personal finance, you can grab stuff from accounting, you can grab stuff from career prep, all in the same assignment. So mix and match to whatever best suits your class. But the accounting, we have the GAAP, we have cash flow, we have building financial statements, everything between. Management, we cover some of the basics of some of the management theories, ethics, leading and directing, and then marketing we get into segmentation, product life cycle planning, selling, marketing plans, that kind of stuff. So that kind of covers what the curriculum looks like at a high level. Do you have any questions on this?
Not yet.
I don't think so. I mean, it's in my mind nice that we could be used for multiple classes. Depending on how.
That's kind of the idea. We find students tend to get the most out of it when they use the resource in more than one class, and that's because when they're doing the stock game and they're doing the budget game and they're doing some of these lessons, if they've seen it before. Even if they're doing it in a completely different context, because the approach of a personal finance class of an accounting class is going to be very different, but it really crystallizes that knowledge and helps them. It's just that repetition really helps. So I have this set. I like it. So I'm going to click create, and now my class is fully set up. So to get your students registered, there's two ways to do it. This link here, you can give to your students. It'll ask them to create their account. They can pick their own username and password. Or you can use our registration file. If you use a registration file, you would just say, I want 10 accounts. And you give the prefix that you want on those accounts, you click add, and the system will generate accounts for you to distribute to your students. You also, as the teacher, have the ability to go in. You can change any student's username at any time. You can reset their passwords at any time. Just a lot of flexibility to help you get your classes up and running as easy as possible. You can also see down here we have a live chat. The support team is reduced hours in the summer, but normally it's going to be here from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. You can ask questions to them at any time and they'll help you out. So when a student logs in for the first time, this is what they see. This is what's called the dashboard page. If I had any holdings, they'd be shown here, but because I don't have holdings, it's actually going to be rotating through a list of the most commonly traded stocks from other students in the platform. You can see this updates every couple of seconds. If I go to the actual trading page, we also have this set up to be as easy as possible for students to use. If they don't know a company name, they can just start typing it, or if they don't know a ticker symbol, they can type the company name and we'll give them symbols that match. Once they have a symbol entered, it's going to load up the name, the logo, the last price. This is a daily performance chart. This is what we call a simple view, where it's red if the stock is down for the day, it's green if it's up. But we also have a more advanced view where students can get technical indicators, they can change the chart types, they can even add in other symbols they want to see along with it. So there's a lot of information and a lot of flexibility available here. Down at the bottom, as soon as they put in that company symbol, we also load up a lot of information about the company. So the company profile, who are they, what do they do, company news, why is the stock price going up and down, so any news stories that mention this stock, analyst ratings, what's Wall Street saying about this stock right now, price history, so they can see how the stock's been moving over time. They can go all the way back to the IPO, and financial statements, so they can find the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement going back 5 years, annually or quarterly. Outside of the trading page, all of this information is also available in our research center. The research center has a lot more available as well, so detailed quote information, PE ratios, dividend yields, option chains, SEC filings, corporate actions, key accountancy ratios, and a lot of other stuff for every stock, and there's market summaries as well. So the top market movers today, economic rates, we even have an economic sectors explorer, so they can see a list of the top 50 companies in each of the major economic sectors, which is kind of one of the lessons we have, is talking about how to use that to diversify a portfolio. Other stuff available, the rankings page is one of the most popular pages on the site. Let me actually switch to one of my other accounts that has rankings ready already. So in this account, I already have a portfolio, so you can see it here. On the right is the assignment the teacher set up for me. I have a countdown showing how long I have to complete it. I have how much I've done. I have the list of tasks that are expected of me. I also have a portfolio breakdown showing how I'm done by symbols, market cap, industry, asset class, words of the day that give me a little bit of glossary terms every day that come in, rotating market news that comes up. For my actual holdings, if I click anything, I can get a little bit more detail about that holding, the dividend yield rate, PE ratio, stuff like that. But I also can switch to chart views. So this gives me kind of a heat map. The red stocks I'm losing money, the green stocks I'm making money. I can see this daily, I can see it monthly, or I can see it yearly. And as a student, I can export anything about my portfolio at any time. So to just a spreadsheet, a CSV file I can use anywhere, or I can take it to Google Sheets directly. So it goes to a Google Drive account for schools that use Google Classroom. The rankings page itself, it's got the student names, it has the portfolio value, it has the return with kind of a relative chart showing how they're doing compared to everybody else. They can see their returns overall. They can also see it weekly, monthly, and if we turn down those other ranking types, they can even see it by the Sharpe ratio or even the alpha beta. There's also stock screeners available, there's trading ideas available. Students can see their closed positions, their account balances, transaction history, order history, dividends they've received, stock splits that have applied to their account, all kinds of other stuff. So, do you have any questions about the portfolio pages?
No, it's very impressive. I was just commenting here. I feel like I'm right on E-Trade. It's like, it really does. It's got all the things that you would use in real life.
We use for all the US stuff, it uses the real-time bid-ask prices. Actually, when I sit on this page for a few seconds, you actually see some of these prices start flashing as the prices are updating in real time. The only restriction is that some of these prices use a 15-minute delay when we show it on the site, and that's just because of a restriction for the exchanges. In the back end, on our end, in our database, we use the real-time bid-ask prices. I'll go into the reports towards the end, but I'll switch over to the budgeting game real quick, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. So if you turn on the budgeting game for your class, your students are going to have this button at the top where they can switch over to it. So switch over to the budget game, and it gives me a little primer about what's expected of me. I pick my avatar to go through the game, and then I get started. So these fixed expenses here, I'm going to have to pay these in basically weekly installments, and you as the teacher are going to be able to set all of these. And there's actually a couple more that we're adding before the configuration is finished, probably next week. We have it set up so the student is expected to actually sum these up and tell us what the total is, because we were finding in our first testing phases, some students were just trying to skip through it and they couldn't remember what they were later. So students need to actually go through the exercise of adding it up. If they don't and enter something random, we penalize them with they have a small loss of money. So they work a part-time job, and so they also see at the start of each month how many hours they're going to work each week. So the teacher is going to be able to choose the hourly wage rate that they get and the tax rate that they're hit with. So again, just so the students don't skip through, they're supposed to sum this up to see how much money they're actually taking home each week. If they don't do it, then they lose money. So this is what the game itself looks like. The students start at the first of the month. They roll the dice to see how many days they go forward. Each day has a morning and an evening. So if I roll, for example, a 2, it's going to take me to the end of day 1. If I roll a 4, it goes through day 2. So let me roll the dice here. So that's 4. I go to the PM on the second day. And I'm given here a buy or not buy decision. Do I buy a new outfit to impress my friends? If I do spend the money, then I choose whether it comes out of my checking account with a debit card or I can use my credit card, in which case it gets subtracted from my available credit balance. Once I've started making credit card purchases, they appear in my credit card statement. You can see here the pink days here. The 19th is when the credit statement is issued, and the 26th is when the credit card bill is due. The student can come in and make payments on this at any time. But if they don't pay it by the 26th, then they're going to start incurring interest, and they're going to get some late fees too at the start of the next month. We also encourage the student to start moving money from their checking account to their savings account. So this is one of the ways that they earn points in the game, is making frequent transfers. The target is to try to put at least 10% of their earnings in the savings. And there's a lot of other kinds of events that come up. So the teacher is going to have some control over what kinds of events pop up. So, for example, these are basically purchase decisions here. I have to purchase this. I don't get a choice because something happened that I have to address. But the teacher is going to be able to say, I want more events happening with risk management, or more events happening with insurance, or more options having to do with investing popping up each month. That way you get a little bit of control to try to make sure the budget game is lining up with the topics that you're trying to emphasize in class. And when I go through, at the end of each week, I get my income. The student will see a pay stub. Occasionally they get little quizzes that pop up too. And again, if they don't answer it correctly, they get it wrong. If they do answer it correctly, they get it right. And every week they have the option of how they're going to spend their free time. Are they going to work extra hours at work for more money? Are they going to socialize with their friends? Are they going to study for their exams that are coming up? Or are they going to do household activities to kind of work on their household? So there's advantages and disadvantages of doing each one. For example, if they earn extra money, they earn more money. It's good. But if they do that too many times in a row, then their grades are going to start to suffer. And so they're going to have to pay money to hire a tutor, because they're starting to fail their exams. Or if they don't take care of their household chores often enough, something like a cockroach infestation is going to happen. So they're going to have to pay for an exterminator to come in. So if they want to earn more money, there's 2 ways to do it. One of them is they're actually working their job at the cafe, so they have to wait some tables. We have a couple other little mini games, where like a 2048 double up game, things like that. So in this one, I'm earning $3 every time I complete an action as a tip. But at the end, there's also going to be a tax rate that kind of eats into the profits that I make. So let me ride this one out. I have 1 minute to complete it.
He's earning money.
Oh,
It's your tips.
okay. Gotcha.
So the time counter goes down. I don't remember the most I've ever gotten it, but I'm certain not getting it this time. So here we go. I earned $87.72 because I had $122 that I earned plus my 14% tax rate to show me how much I actually took home. So and then it does give pretty consistent reminders to students to try to move some of that money into their savings account. If I look at my financial summary, it's going to show me my inflows and outflows of each week. My net worth statement shows me how much I'm ticking up. So my net worth statement went a little bit up this week because I just earned some extra money working at my part-time job. And there's going to be class rankings too, outlining how each student is doing for their credit score and how they're doing for their overall game score and how much they're doing for their net worth. So the credit score, basically, if they don't use their credit card in a month, it's not going to change. If they do use their credit card, they need to make sure they don't use more than 30% of their total available credit, and they need to make sure that they make their payments on time. So if they do everything right, it's going to go up by 30 or 40 points. If they do something wrong, it's going to get deducted from that somehow. So if I switch over to one of my older classes that I've actually completed a couple months, the student also has some statements that they can see to look back. So in my statements, one of them is just the score. So what was the score I had in each month? What was my income and expenses, the overall game score? But then they can go into their checking and savings account where they can see all their transaction histories. They can filter it down by month. I haven't moved any money into savings account in that one, but I can also see all my credit card transactions. So this page is getting updated now. By the end of August, it's actually going to look a lot more like a regular bank statement, so it's going to be a little bit more realistic in that sense. But yeah, the filters work pretty well, so they can see, for example, just my July transactions here, 2019. So that's the long and short of the budgeting game. The last thing I want to show you are the teacher reports. So all of the teacher stuff is up here under what we call administration. Everything else on the site is the same for teachers and students. So you can come in here, you can make trades, you can do stuff to basically show exactly what the site looks like from for a student if you want to give them kind of a walkthrough. But under the administrations, we have some other stuff you can do. So the big one is reports. Let me close some of these extra tabs. So summary report, it just lists how many students are in your class, how many activated, meaning they placed at least one trade, how many total trades they made, and you can recover that registration link if you need to give it out to your students again. The activity report, let me actually switch to a class where I have some trades. The activity report shows how the students interact with the site. So it's going to show when they've been logging in, when are they making trades, when are their orders placing. Towards the bottom, I don't have any trades in this class yet, so there's not really much popping up. But down here you can see each student, how many trades, how many orders. If you click more info, you'll see that specific person, how they've been interacting with the site day by day, and all of the orders they've been placing. The next one's called the ranking report. This one's not like the student rankings page. This actually is, it uses the end of day values from the previous day, but from this report you can see each student's holdings, you can see their trades, you can see their account balances, profit loss statements, all the trade notes they left. You can export all this data yourself if you want to. You also have a cash adjustment where you can add or remove cash from any student's account at any time. So if you want to give like a cash participation bonus, you can do that. If you want to penalize students for one reason or another, you can do it as well. Historical ranking, basically it's the same thing, it just goes back in time. Registration file, that's the one I showed you right at the beginning where you can reset students' passwords or add more students to the class. User accounts, this is a little bit deeper data about how students are trading. So the last time they logged in, their buying power, their cash balances, and things like that. The top trade securities report, you can enter any date range that you want to see, and this is going to show you the most commonly traded stocks with how many students have made those trades in your class. I don't have any trades in this class, there's not much to see. The budget game report is going to show you what the students have been doing in the budget game. It's going to show you their most recent month's final score here, but if you click details, you'll see everything about the previous month as well. The same thing the students see on their own report. And the last one is called Teams. So Teams is part of the stock market game. Students by default are working individually. They get their cash when they register and they make their trades. But you also have the ability to create teams. So by creating a team, you can put students into teams, and by putting them into teams, every time they do something in their portfolio, it's also applied to the team portfolio. So it's kind of aggregated together and it becomes a group project. So as a teacher, you still have that accountability where you see what every student's been doing, and the student sees what they've been doing on their own, but it all gets aggregated in the team portfolio as well, and they have team rankings, and they have it just makes it a little bit more as a group project, and there's more collaboration going on. This last tab here is called Custom Reports. The teachers can build their own reports. So if they want to see data in some way that we don't have pre-built for them, they can do it. So they can see their students' username, first name, last name. I want a button to reset their password, view their portfolio, and edit their username. And I want to see the stuff about their current open positions. So create that. Oh, I need to give a name. I create the report, and now it's available for me where I'll be able to see all my students and all the stuff they're holding. I don't have any, this report is returning nothing because I have nothing in my portfolio, but if I actually buy something, this is where I enter my trade notes too. I can now go back to my report, and it's not loading yet. So this might actually take some of the reports actually take 15-20 minutes to load all the data, so sorry about that.
It's okay.
Do you have any questions on the reporting?
I can think of.
I did forget to show the assignment reporting. This is, it's called the assignments page. This is where you'd see all the students in your class. You'd see how much progress they've made on the assignments you've given them. The details button will show you what they've finished, what they haven't. The score one will show you the grades they got on each one of those quizzes. View assignment would let you see what was there, what wasn't. A create new assignment would let you create more. We have a copy older assignment, so if you're using this in the same class each semester, you can copy your class over with 2 clicks. And you can edit the assignment to add or remove stuff after it's been created too. So there's a lot of flexibility there as well. Other small stuff that's available, the admin resources. This has lesson plans. It has a recording of our teacher introduction webinars. It has a bunch of stuff for teachers using it for the first time or just who need a refresher. Post a message. You can upload images and post messages to your class. If you do have a message posted, it's going to appear right here at the top of the page for your students as soon as they log in. In the Learning Center, even if you don't assign something for your students explicitly, they still have access to it and they can still find it and they can still explore if they want to. Same thing with tutorial videos. Even if you don't make it required, the tutorial videos are going to be available for your students to review. But otherwise, I think that's about it from me for all the stuff I wanted to cover. Any general questions on what you've seen?
Are teachers using this like as a standalone course, or are they integrating it into multiple courses, do you find most often?
Most of the time it's in a couple classes. It kind of depends on the school size, because we do work with a lot of smaller schools that might have just 50 students in the grade level, and of course they're probably just going to be using it one class, maybe 2. But the academies we work with generally have it in a lot of different classes. It's kind of spread across the whole curriculum, and the teachers use the parts that are applicable to their classes.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking from an administrative standpoint, would we keep, like, let's say we were going to have it over multiple courses, possibly even over multiple years of their high school career here, do they still just maintain like the one account that multiple teachers can access? I'm trying to think of how you would manage that.
So the student would have one login. So they create their username and password in the first class they join. If they're in multiple classes, every time they click one of those registration links when they're logged in, it's going to add that class to their portfolio, or that class to their account. So this select portfolio thing I have here, this is actually all the different classes that I've joined into. These are a bunch of test classes and ones I've done for demos and things. So there's no limit to how many classes a student can be maintaining at once.
And as a teacher, so if we have multiple teachers implementing this program, does each teacher see the student's history from other classes, even if it wasn't theirs?
No, the teacher would only see what the student has done in their class.
Okay.
We're working on a new, what we're calling an administrator account, where there would be the ability for the teacher or an administrator to see the stats for every single class. But typically, it's the teacher sees reports based on a specific class. So the student can see all the classes they've been in, but the teacher only sees them in the context of their individual class.
Okay.
Okay, so the big question, cost for the software and then cost for the ticker boards.
All right.
And newer monitors.
How many students approximately do you think would be using this in a year?
Times, maybe max of
Classes.
Max, yeah, max of 50 to 60.
Okay, at 100 student, or for a license that covers up to 100 students a year, it would be $1,500 for the site licenses for the stock game, the bug generating game, the curriculum, all that stuff. At 50 students, if that one has a cap at $975 for 50 students. So basically, if a student is using it in multiple classes, that student is only counted once. But if a student uses it once in a year, they count for the whole year. So you just kind of have to think about where that kind of puts you. For the tickers, so let me pull up that page again. So if you already have a TV or an LCD screen available at your school, the tickers themselves are not, or the screens themselves are pretty easy to implement. The images here are pretty big, so it can take them a minute to load, but let me get it up here. So here we go. So these screens here, I think these are actually just TVs, and if you already have a flat screen available, all you need is a $100 Intel stick that plugs into it, which allows it to connect to our data feed, and then the data itself is $360 per year for up to 3 screens. For the tickers, we don't sell them directly. We work with another company. A 8-foot ticker is about $5,500. A 10-foot ticker or a 16-foot ticker is about $9,500. And then each ticker requires a $500 per year data feed. That's just for the exchanges for the right to publicly display data like this.
And I'm just, so the stuff that we're looking at right now that's being displayed on the screen, I'm just trying to make out like what kind of information is being showed on that TV, not the ticker.
Okay, so the screens, this one in particular, you can see on the right here, this is a news feed where they're just pulling in, I believe it's CNBC news feed where it's listing news stories that rotate. This one in particular, they have a bunch of interest rates. This one's called energy, where it's showing coal and oil. This one's metals, where it's copper and gold. They have bond rates. Over here, they have a list of most active stocks. Over here, they have currency rates. They have a chart showing the S&P 500 performance. On the right side of this screen is showing their class rankings from the stock game. Some of the other stuff that's available, student-built watch list, where you pick 30 stocks that the students want to see. They'll rotate through and they'll be streaming throughout the day. Personal finance, words of the day and tips of the day, along with economics and accounting. So if I pull up this school right here, for example, they're actually showing one of the accounting terms of the day. Takes a minute to load.
Like our computer.
Yeah, so this is the accounting essentials, where it goes through some accounting glossary terms. The next one is economics, where it goes through economic glossary terms. There's another one for personal finance, and there's another one for investing. And then you can see here they have the stock watch list that the students built. This is a streaming chart of the S&P 500. They have a news feed with just with market news coming up, and then some customization for the school. Their name, the background is a picture of the school itself, the time, things like that.
And where do people normally put these? Is this usually in classrooms, or are they putting them in like a cafeteria or something like that?
I would say about 75% are in a classroom. The other 25%, we see them a lot of times in the hallways near the classrooms, and sometimes in the lunchrooms, depending on the size of the school. The smaller schools will put them in a lunchroom so every student can see their rankings because they'll know who's up there. The other schools who like putting them in the hallways try to put them outside of the classroom where the class is taught, because it kind of raises the profile. The students see their name coming across the board in their rankings every hour or so, or shorter. You can configure how often it comes up. And between the tickers, the LCD screens, and all that stuff, there's always an emphasis on make sure that it's always visible from the hallway, because it just looks really good. The students like seeing it. It makes the class itself more popular. When teachers visit the building, they love seeing stuff like that, because it makes it feel more professional, more advanced, and more polished.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you. Very impressive.
So next steps, can I email you with some ideas for proposals?
Sure.
So, some different levels? Okay.
So
And I can just email you.
I think you have it, but it's ksmith@stocktrak.com. Yeah, I'll take a look at what you have in mind. We'll get you a quote soon, and then we'll kind of move on from there.
Okay.
So the screens and tickers, well, the tickers have the longest lead time. That's probably a month or two, because those are custom built. The screens, if you already have a TV or an LCD screen that you can just go buy and have installed at your school, that has about a 3-day setup, probably less, depending on when. Like, as soon as it's actually installed in your room, we can have the data feed live. For the site license for the stock game, that can be set up same day.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll shoot you off an email. If not today, tomorrow morning, first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.